Rationalism. Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz. History of Psychology, Psych 182, Department of Psychology, California State University, Fresno, Professor Michael Bautman. Leibniz emphasized the existential value of an individual, and that cannot be explained alone by matter or form, but it was a holistic idea. Now, like many other rationalist philosophers, Leibniz believes that the mind exists prior to experience. Furthermore, the mind receives and acts upon thoughts and ideas. Again, the rationalist notion of the active mind processing information. Now, Leibniz refuted Locke's notions of the blank slate or tabula rasa. He believed that there's nothing in the mind that had not first been in the senses except the mind itself. This is the critical component, the active mind notion. And Leibniz believed that the mind determined the significance of sensory information. And through experience, we can focus thoughts and ideas we already have and provide meaning and organizations to those thoughts in an appropriate manner. But, and this is a big but, experience does not cause ideas. It helps us process them, but it does not cause ideas. Now, to get into Leibniz's ideas, we have to look at some of his units, and his primary unit is the monad. Now, the monad comes from the Greek. He went back to the Greeks to come up with this word. And basically, looking at the Greek here, it means unit alone. A monad is basically an object, whether it's a cognitive object or another object, that cannot be further divided. In other words, it's irreducible. And Leibniz talked about many different kinds of monads. According to Leibniz, the mind is itself a monad, an indivisible whole. A little bit more on the structure of monads. Monads are active and they have a consciousness of their own. And many exist. They differ in clarity and distinctiveness. You've heard those terms before in this class, haven't you? And each monad has a purpose. Those monads that have great clarity give us pleasure. Those that are not clear can cause us unpleasantness. Furthermore, some monads essentially are smarter than others. Now, if you remember, Aristotle had his scala natura, which went from inert things to God. In a similar way, monads are scaled in Leibniz's model from inert matter to God. And humans are composites of many monads that are organized by, well, depending on what you're talking about, the soul or the mind. And so we have to look at these ideas of monads. Let's talk about other things with Leibniz's idea. First, we have how things interact. Now, Leibniz, being a religious person, believed that God started everything. And I just saw a typo here. It should be psychophysical parallelism. Missing the C in psycho here. And the world also works through a pre-established harmony. In other words, again, like other thinkers of the time, according to Leibniz, there is a world of the mind and the soul and a world of the body. Now, they do not interact directly, but he also believed everything was predetermined and that at a certain time, just like in Aristotle's scheme, the unmoved mover started the universe in motion, or as the physics or Sheldon from the TV show would say, the Big Bang happened and everything exploded. When the world started, both the world of the mind and the world of the physical objects work together in perfect parallelism. One way that Leibniz and his followers explain this is two clocks that run at the same time. So if you think of the world of the mind as one clock and the world of a body as another clock that start at the same time and run in perfect harmony with each other, you have Leibniz's idea about how things interact with the universe. Let's get on to some of other ideas that Leibniz had. One is having to do with perception. And Leibniz talks about petite or small perceptions. And this is a stimuli so minute it's not perceivable in consciousness. Now, according to Leibniz, monads can join together and combine to reach a level of awareness so that you can sense what's going on. I think the easiest example of that is when we cook something. Let's say that we're going to cook a can of soup on the stove. We pour this cold soup into the pot. Probably use a microwave these days, but the pot's a better example. Pour the soup into the pot, turn the stove on. And you don't smell anything at first. But as the soup gets warmer and warmer and more molecules get in the air from the soup heating up, eventually those soup monads, if you would, combine and you can smell the soup. Profundity, isn't it? Leibniz believed in this notion, which he calls apperception, and he believed that there's a continuum from the unconscious to the conscious mind. And he's the first one to speculate on this continuum. If you look at modern sensory and perception research, oftentimes we still are looking at threshold information when that research is done. He named this threshold, and the threshold for Leibniz, is the limen. And the limen is the threshold of awareness for the experience. So in our soupy example, right when you can start smelling the aroma of the soup and you become aware of it, it's reached the limen. So let's summarize Leibniz's contributions. He's the first to speculate on the existence of a continuum between the conscious and unconscious minds. Called that the limen, the threshold of awareness. He also had the unusual idea of psychological parallelism, which is ending up in a pre-established harmony between the mind and the body. Again, think of that psychological or psychophysical, parallelism as a pre-established harmony between the mind and the body, like two clocks in perfect sync. So I'm sure that you've developed many monads on all of these rationalist philosophers, at least the ones we've covered yet. And I hope you've learned a bit from this short video lecture. We'll see you next time in the history of psychology. Bye now. This has been a We Have Couches video production. Copyright 2020, Professor Michael Botwin. All rights reserved.